The moment itself wasn't dramatic. It happened in the kitchen on an ordinary Tuesday evening. The kind of evening that usually disappears from memory before the week even ends. Our daughter was upstairs finishing homework. The dishwasher hummed softly. I was about to leave for work. I leaned in to kiss my wife goodbye the way I had done for years. She stepped back. Not angrily, not suddenly. Just enough to make the distance clear. "I'm not obligated to do that," she said. The words weren't loud, but they carried a strange finality, like she had rehearsed them in her head before saying them out loud. For a moment I thought I'd misheard her. The room felt unusually still. Even the dishwasher sounded distant. I nodded once, more out of instinct than understanding, then leaned closer just enough for my voice to stay quiet. "Then I'm not either." I left for work a few seconds later. No argument. No slammed doors. Just a quiet sentence sitting between us like something fragile that had already broken. At first I told myself it didn't matter. People say things during tense moments. Words slip out sharper than intended. Marriage survives small moments of irritation all the time. But something about the word obligated stayed with me during the drive. Obligation. It's a strange word to use inside a marriage. It turns affection into duty, kindness into a contract. By the time I finished my shift that night, I wasn't angry. I was thinking, mostly about how many quiet obligations had shaped the life we lived. The next morning looked normal from the outside. Breakfast, coffee, our daughter complaining about a math assignment. But something subtle had shifted in my mind. For years, I had filled small gaps without thinking, scheduling repairs, paying bills early, rearranging my work hours so someone was always available when our daughter needed a ride somewhere. None of it felt like sacrifice at the time. It felt like partnership. Now I kept remembering that single sentence. "I'm not obligated," so I began removing the invisible parts. Not dramatically, just carefully. I stopped adjusting my schedule around errands that weren't mine. I paid the bills that had my name attached to them and left the rest where they were. When school emails came addressed to both parents, I forwarded them without stepping in. The house kept running, but it ran differently. Like a machine missing a few quiet gears, no one noticed until the rhythm changed. At first, my wife treated the shift like temporary irritation. "You forgot to call the plumber," she said one evening. "I didn't forget," I replied. The silence that followed was heavier than the sentence. Days passed without arguments, which somehow made everything feel more serious. The house felt organized but colder. Conversations became shorter, practical. Our daughter noticed it before either of us said anything directly. Children have a strange ability to sense emotional weather even when adults pretend the sky is clear. One evening, she watched us from the kitchen table while we spoke about groceries like co-workers discussing inventory. Later that night, she asked a question that landed with quiet accuracy. "Why are you both acting weird?" Neither of us answered. 2 weeks after that Tuesday, I started packing a small overnight bag. Not in secret, just calmly placing clothes inside while standing beside the bed. My wife watched for a moment before speaking. "You're leaving?" I nodded. "For a while." She folded her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "So this is because of one sentence?" "No," I said. "It's because of what that sentence means." Our daughter walked into the hallway at exactly the wrong moment. Or maybe the right one. She looked from me to her mother, then back again. "Why is Dad leaving?" The question hung in the air. My wife opened her mouth but didn't answer immediately. For the first time since that Tuesday, uncertainty crossed her face. The next day, we sat in a lawyer's office. It wasn't dramatic. No threats, no accusations, just paperwork, financial structures, custody frameworks, housing options. The conversation moved with professional calm, numbers replacing emotions. Something became visible during that meeting that hadn't been obvious before. For years, I had quietly handled most of the long-term planning. Mortgage structure, savings accounts, insurance policies, not as control, just organization. But now those structures suddenly mattered. Not emotionally, practically. When we left the office, neither of us spoke for several minutes. The parking lot was quiet. Late afternoon sun reflecting off windshields. My wife finally exhaled slowly. I didn't think it would go this far. I believed her. That was the strange part. She hadn't meant the sentence as a declaration of independence. It was probably frustration, a moment of emotional distance. But words sometimes reveal ideas we didn't realize we were holding. That evening, I packed the rest of the bag. Our daughter sat at the kitchen counter watching me move through the house calmly. "Are you coming back?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "Just not tonight." She nodded slowly, trying to understand something far bigger than the question she had asked. My wife stood in the kitchen while I carried the bag to the door. For the first time since that Tuesday, her voice sounded uncertain. "I didn't mean it like that." I paused with my hand on the doorknob. "I know." Silence filled the space again. "But words still mean something," I added quietly. I left without slamming the door. No shouting. No final speech. Just the quiet sound of the latch closing behind me. Driving away didn't feel like victory. It felt like something heavier. Like realizing that dignity sometimes requires distance, even when you once believed patience could fix everything. Inside the house, my wife stood alone in the kitchen. For the first time, she understood something that hadn't been obvious when she said the word freedom. Freedom inside a marriage isn't simple. It carries terms. And once both people start honoring those terms honestly, the structure holding everything together can quietly disappear. Upstairs, our daughter closed her bedroom door, trying to make sense of a silence that felt larger than the house itself. And somewhere down the road, I kept driving. Not celebrating, just wondering whether independence always arrives with consequences no one expects.